Everyone, this is the Iran update for Tuesday, February 10th. And we're going to start this one with General Jack Keane on Fox News giving his take on the current situation. Let's have a look at that.
Well, I think a deal can be reached. Well, you have to get in position. We have plenty of time. If you remember Venezuela, we waited around for a while, and we're in no rush. I think we had the results today were with Iran. It was a meeting. We're going to meet again early next week, and they want to make a deal. Iran, as they should want to make a deal. They know the consequences. If they don't make a deal, the consequences are very steep. So we'll see what happens.
And President Trump giving a positive assessment of talks between the U.S. and Iran last week, but the president also sounding a note of caution if a deal is not ultimately reached. It all comes amid a buildup of U.S. military assets in the Middle East. So let's untangle this with retired General Jack Keane. He's a Fox News senior strategic analyst. Sir, before we get your take on this, Ambassador Michael Huckabee trying to explain why this is bigger than Israel.
Americans need to understand Iran's threat is not about Israel. It's about America. They've been saying death to America for 47 years. President Trump is just that. He's President Trump. He is not President Chump. He's not going to allow the Ayatollah to continue to play this along and somehow act like that he will never take action. He's already proven he will take action when he needs to, and when he does, it will not be mild.
General, what is your assessment of the situation now?
Yeah, well, certainly we're in a phase here that we've seen play out before with the Trump administration, and that is when he has a potential conflict with an adversary, is offering them a diplomatic way out of that before the execution of it. We saw it back prior to the June operation, Midnight Hammer, to destroy Iran's nuclear capability, and prior to the commencing the war that Israel did. Diplomatic overtures were made to Iran, and they refused them. And the result was the 12-day war and the United States' very successful operation. Same thing happened in Venezuela with Maduro. And that diplomatic option is being offered to Iran right now. I think Iran's motivations in this are kind of twofold. One, to drag out these negotiations as much as possible. And the advantage they see in doing that is it puts off the military operation itself and enables them to better prepare to defend against it, and also to be able to retaliate as a result of it. And then the second thing Iran has, and this is major motivation for them, is to make some kind of a deal with the Americans that would grant them sanction relief. Admittedly, it would likely be condition-based, based on their complying with the deal itself. But that is clearly what their objective is. And the reason for that is, as we have reported here time and again, their economy is in the tank. With this, no hope of recovery. And that is why the people are in the streets and really want a new regime, because they know this regime is not capable of changing the quality of their life experience. So that's where we are. I actually, even if we got a deal that's favorable to us, Dana and Bill, I think the preferred option is a military one, because if we get a deal with the Iranians, we know a couple of things. One, they're going to cheat. Two, they're not going to stop destabilizing the Middle East. They will continue to support their proxies, and they will continue to be aggressive against Israel, which may warrant even more military conflict, as a result of that. That's who the Iranians are. They'll continue to export terrorism itself, and they will cheat. We know they will cheat because we've been with them for 4+ decades. So I don't think it's a good option to extend the life of this regime for what? Maybe another 10 years or so. It doesn't make sense. To me, the military option, the one that the president is in the planning and preparation stage of, it is a preferred option here, because it sets the conditions for regime collapse. And it would likely be a combined operation with Israel and the United States. And what we're seeing now, the pacing for this operation is being driven by being able to move resources into the region to do two things. One, to help us defend, as well as the Israelis, against Iranians' retaliation attack, but also to make certain that this operation would likely not be a limited operation in terms of a one-night operation or 2 nights. This would be a comprehensive campaign combined with the stated purpose to set the conditions for a regime collapse. And that would mean the whole Iranian ecosystem in terms of what composes that regime, what sustains that regime, would be under attack, to include their military capability, obviously rockets, missiles, etc.
Well, we also know that the Prime Minister of Israel, Bibi Netanyahu, will be visiting the White House this week. So we'll take all of that under advisement and be in touch with you as the week goes along. Thank you so much.
All right, let's unpack this. First of all, that clip at the beginning of Trump, if you noticed, and I've been pointing this out all the way through, in the sentence, the first sentence they had him say, he said, "We want a deal, and it takes time for us to get into position," which is talking about preparing for an attack. It's that classic Trump misdirection play that I've been talking about. And in case you missed one of the previous videos that we did sometime last week, I also used this clip I'm about to show you in a video on the Israel 365 YouTube channel. I want to play this again because it's so important. This is a clip of President Trump way back in 2016 when he was first running for president. This is in April of 2016. He wasn't even the nominee yet. And he gave his first major foreign policy address as a candidate in Washington, D.C. And I'm just going to play you a couple seconds of this. They're so important for what we're all going through right now.
And then there's ISIS. I have a simple message for them. Their days are numbered. I won't tell them where, and I won't tell them how. We must as a nation, be more unpredictable. We are totally predictable. We tell everything. We're sending troops, we tell them. We're sending something else, we have a news conference. We have to be unpredictable. And we have to be unpredictable starting now.
There you go. This is a doctrine for President Trump, okay? Let's think of it that way. When we look at these misdirection plays at him speaking, giving mixed messages or seeming indecisive or erratic, that's not the proper way to interpret it. This is a doctrine of President Trump's. And I'm going to also point out that in that speech, when he said that part, this wasn't an off-the-cuff remark. Trump often goes off script, but you can tell when he's going off script and when he's not, because you could tell when he's reading at a certain pace and reading what's on the teleprompter. This was part of his speech. This was an important point about how he is going to conduct the sensitive aspects of foreign policy that deal with military, right? Meaning it's unpredictable. It's a doctrine of unpredictability. Now, later on in that clip from Fox News that we started with, we had Ambassador Huckabee basically saying, look, President Trump is not going to allow this to be a situation where he doesn't act, and he's not going to be another Obama. He's not going to allow himself to get duped. And General Keane pointed out along those lines that what is really the point of making a deal with these guys so they can just kick the can down the road? Because even if there's a deal to dismantle their nuclear program, it's a technology that they're working on. They have the wherewithal to rebuild it, and these guys they could just wait it out until Trump is not president anymore. And there has never been an opportunity ever since the 1979 revolution in Iran that brought these criminals into power. There has never been an opportunity like this to remove them from the stage. And that's the point that General Keane was making. And we have to get our heads around this. Big changes like this that look like massive instability and a war. I totally understand the inclination that so many people have to say, oh, we don't want to go to war, anything to avoid war. That anything to avoid war impulse can lead us to allowing evil actors to remain in power long term. And there's no reason why they should remain in power long term. Now, I'll also point out, Keane made a very good point, that the attacks on Iran will set the conditions for regime collapse. Set the conditions for regime collapse. That's how we have to think about this. Ultimately, the regime change has to come from the Iranian people. There's no way that this regime will go away without the Iranian people stepping up. But the United States and Israel together can carry out attacks that set the conditions for the regime to fall apart and collapse. And that's what these attacks are going to be designed to do if and when President Trump decides to launch them, which again, it's looking more and more likely that that's what he's going to do. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Netanyahu is on his way. We have Prime Minister Netanyahu put out a statement. I'm now leaving for the United States for my 7th trip to meet with President Trump since he was elected. This, of course, does not include his unforgettable visit to Israel and his speech in the Knesset. Let's take a look at what he says here because he talks about the negotiations a little bit.
אני יוצא עכשיו לארצות הברית לנסיעה השביעית שלי להיפגש עם הנשיא טראמפ מאז שהוא נבחר בקדנציה השנייה. זה כמובן לא כולל את הביקור הבלתי נשכח שלו בישראל והנאום שלו בכנסת. אני חושב שהדברים האלה משקפים את הקרבה הייחודית ליחסים באמת היוצא הדופן שיש לנו עם ארצות הברית, לי אישית עם הנשיא ולמדינת ישראל עם ארצות הברית. דבר שלא היה כמוהו בתולדותינו. בנסיעה הזאת אנחנו נדון בשורה של נושאים, עזה, האזור, אבל כמובן בראש ובראשונה במשא ומתן עם איראן. אני אציג בפני הנשיא את התפיסות שלנו לגבי העקרונות במשא ומתן, העקרונות החשובים. ובעיניי הם עקרונות חשובים לא רק לישראל, אלא לכל מי שבעולם רוצה שלום וביטחון במזרח התיכון.
Okay, so we all knew that that was the purpose of the trip. And as AP reports, Netanyahu wants Trump to demand more from Iran. The leaders will meet this week. And we talked about this in yesterday's update, that Israel is really pressuring that any negotiations, as it says here, the prime minister believes that any negotiations must include limiting ballistic missiles and ending support for the Iranian axis, meaning the proxies. And that was a statement from Netanyahu's office over the weekend. And America, of course, has this massive military buildup here. And then in this AP piece, they quote an Iran expert from Israel who used to work for the Mossad. And she points out, Sima Shine, she points out that Israel, of course, is afraid that the U.S. is going to reach a narrow agreement with Iran, which would temporarily halt uranium enrichment. A deal in which Iran halts its enrichment for several years would allow Trump to claim victory. But Israel believes any such agreement that does not end Iran's nuclear program and reduce its ballistic missile arsenal will eventually require Israel to launch another wave of strikes, she said. And some members of Netanyahu's cabinet have signaled that unilateral action remains on the table for Israel, even if a deal is reached that Trump hails as a victory. This is a member of Netanyahu's cabinet. This is Energy Minister Eli Cohen saying this on Army radio. Now, let me explain. Not all cabinet ministers are as close to the prime minister, and not all of them speak for the government necessarily. Some of the ministers are from other parties. Eli Cohen is very close to Prime Minister Netanyahu. He is part of his inner circle. Okay, so when Energy Minister Eli Cohen tells Army radio that Israel views Iran's ballistic missiles as a grave threat and, quote, reserves the option to act should an agreement not meet its security needs, we need to take that extremely seriously because that means that the Israelis are preparing everyone, including their own people, for the possibility that Israel will act alone if there's a deal that does not satisfy Israel. Okay, so one way or another, those ballistic missiles are going to get dealt with, whether they get dealt with by the Americans or they get dealt with by the Israelis. Meanwhile, with other players in the region, the Turks are signaling again that there should not be any military intervention. This is an interesting plot line developing because of the close working relationship that the Trump administration has with the Turks, which is very problematic, of course. But here we have the Justice and Development Party, the AK party, that is Erdogan's party. So an official from that party, the party spokesman, was addressing regional and global issues following a central executive board meeting chaired by President Erdogan. And he said that any military intervention in Iran, external military intervention, will be based on wrong analyses and cause great instability. Now, of course, it would cause great instability, let's be honest, but maybe we need a little instability. You know, this fetish of stability being a goal and being a good thing. This is something that's really worth talking about because you hear it from world leaders all the time. Oh, we want stability. We want stability. We want stability. What does stability mean? I mean, North Korea's stable, right? It's a brutal dictatorship where no one has any human rights, but it's stable. If stability means that the bad actors continue to be bad actors, what does that mean? And what does stability mean with the Iranian regime in power? Have we had stability for the last 47 years with Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis and everything else, and the drug trafficking across to Venezuela, up into the United States, and everything that the Iranian regime does? I guess it's stability because the regime hasn't fallen. This Turkish official saying that we need to have stability, this is the language they're talking. They're trying to sell this to the people around Trump that, don't rock the boat. We want stability. Don't be someone who started a war. And they're all warning that attacking Iran could lead to regional instability. They're warning, the Iranians have been saying this as well, that it's going to lead to a regional war. Now, let me be very clear. I said this in my update the other day. There will not be, and I'm going out on a limb making a prediction here. I don't usually like to make predictions, but let me be clear. There will not be a wider regional war if the United States attacks Iran. Anyone who tells you that there's a fear of that, tell them this. Listen carefully. Wider regional war means that someone joins the Iranians, that someone helps the Iranians, that someone jumps in when the US and or Israel attacks the Iranians. Who's going to join in? Look at a map of the Middle East. None of the Gulf states are going to attack the United States and attack American assets. Who's going to join them? Saudi Arabia is not going to join them. Who's going to help them out? Their proxies? Yeah, okay. Iraqi Hezbollah and Hezbollah in Lebanon, who probably won't do anything because they're caught between a rock and a hard place in Lebanon. You can go over to the Israel 365 news channel and you'll see my video about Hezbollah in Saudi Arabia that we just released, where I talk about that. No one is going to join the Iranians fighting against the Americans. It would be the end of them. Imagine any regional actor who joined in to help Iran by attacking American assets or attacking Israeli assets. They would invite unbelievable retaliation against themselves. There's no one who's going to help them. And the Russians and the Chinese already showed us during the 12-day war that they were not willing to lift a finger. So instead, what they do is these kind of performative actions that make it look like they're still with them, and that it makes it look like they'll support them militarily without committing. I talked about this in an earlier update last week, where the Chinese and the Russians said that they're going to conduct joint naval drills together with the Iranians in mid-February, right in the middle of all of this. No, the point was to signal that they're with them without making a commitment to defend them. So we had something similar today where this was just reported today that the Chinese military attaché, the based in Tehran, so the Chinese have a military attaché based in Tehran, and today he met with Brigadier General Bahman Bemard, commander of the Islamic Republic of Iran Air Force, commemorating the allegiance of the Iranian Air Force personnel to Ayatollah Khamenei and Air Force Day. During the ceremony, the Chinese military attaché presented a scale model of the J-20 Chinese fighter jet to the Iranian Air Force commander. The J-20 is a fifth-generation Chinese stealth fighter developed by Chengdu Aircraft Industry Group, Chinese, designed for both air superiority and ground attack, et cetera, et cetera. And then it says at the bottom here, it's considered a serious competitor to the U.S. fifth-generation aircraft, such as the F-22 and the F-35, symbolizing China's technological advances in defense industry. So he presents him with this toy, with this scale model of a stealth fighter. Now, let me be very clear. The Chinese have not sold this plane to Iran. They're not going to sell it to Iran. The Iranians are trying to get the Chinese to sell them the J-10 fighter, which is a generation behind. There was rumors going back a few months ago. This is a story from, I think, back in, when is this from? Back in July, right after the 12-day war, where the Chinese were trying to purchase the J-10 fighter, the J-10C, which is a generation behind the J-20. It's still a nice plane, and it's not even clear that they've purchased that yet. Let me add that weeks after the 12-day war, instead of trying to rebuild their infrastructure and maybe solve some of their economic problems, they were hard at it trying to buy more weapons. At the time, they purchased some Russian MiGs. But this little stunt here of presenting the head of the Iranian Air Force with this stealth fighter is just a way of kind of flexing muscles and saying, look, the Chinese are going to be arming the Iranians with advanced equipment. Look, the Chinese are not going to risk anything to defend the Iranian regime. They will not. So, bottom line is, this is what I'm trying to tell you. Anyone who tells you that there is a threat of a regional war if the U.S. attacks Iran, don't believe them. It's nonsense. Or just ask them the simple question. Okay, tell me, who's going to join the Iranians? Who's going to fight alongside them? When was the last time anyone in the Middle East jumped in to help fight a war? Any state actor jumped in to help fight a war, to help out another country fighting a war? Where have you ever seen that in the Middle East? It's absolute nonsense. Don't believe it. It ain't going to happen. That's my update for today. We'll keep watching everything. There's a lot happening here. You can drop a comment. Let me know if you agree with me. Maybe you disagree and you think there is a real chance of a wider regional war. If so, answer my question. Who do you think will join them? How do you think this will play out? If you do agree with me, please share this video. Tell other people about it, because there's a lot happening now, and there's a lot of fog and a lot of misdirection plays by everyone involved. So please keep watching this channel. Stay tuned to it. And again, please drop a comment. Let me know what you think of these videos, because we're still building out the channel, and we really appreciate all your help. And of course, always go over to Israel 365 News. Check out everything we're doing there. God bless.